We were teased about it a few years ago. Carl Froch did a poll on it on his Facebook page, I remember, where we had a choice out of James DeGale, Gennady Golovkin or Julio Cesar Chavez for the prospect if he were to come out of retirement after the big rematch victory over Groves. Who would you like to see him fight? Golovkin clearly won the poll, but despite it being such a mouth-watering clash, such had warfare written all over it, we never got it, and we ultimately had to reconcile ourselves to Froch just doing that tweet of going too big, too strong for Triple J after a workout in a really typically obnoxious way that Froch really enjoyed. But had the fight have happened, and it would have had to happen at 168 pounds, no question, because Froch could not have made middleweight, I truly believe him when he said that, who basically would have won this one? Now, despite Abel Sanchez's remark years ago about Golovkin that my man can fight from 154 to 168 pounds, that's never happened. He hasn't deviated from middleweight. He doesn't seem to really have any intentions to do so. There was a possible Ward fight, but that never happened either, so we don't really know. So essentially Golovkin is an unknown quantity at super middle, despite the stories as well of brutalising heavyweights in sparring. That's sparring, they're gym tales. It doesn't mean anything. What we do know is Froch was a big super middleweight. He was just bone and muscle, very well conditioned, and he has the Kazakh for both height and reach. Now, no, Froch wasn't, you couldn't even really call him a boxer puncher because he just really liked getting stuck in, but he did have his own awkward way of utilising that left hand. He did know how to utilise range, move about. He boxed fairly well against Arthur Abraham when he did, and even against Groves when he was getting outboxed. He could still compete with him at times with the jab because he has that pretty long arm, and he picks his moments fairly well in his own awkward way before sailing in and trying to brutalise you and pin you down. Now, of course, that inherent aggression of Froch's style is what could open up a big can of worms against Golovkin because he was really open. He did square his feet when he came in on the attack, and he kind of punched from chest level, so his arms were down when he was pumping away like this. And Golovkin, no, not the quickest puncher, and maybe that's become more evident when he fought like Alvarez and he started to slow down a bit, but he would be able to loop his shots here against the guy who generally fought quite upright. Now, admittedly, we've got two unknowns here, which is we don't know how either man would take each other's power. We both know they are very tough guys. It will be very interesting to see how Golovkin would take Froch's power, because I think there's a big difference between a Canelo Alvarez, who does have a crisp, snappy pop to his shots, but I don't think he could drill the right hand like Froch could do. Of course, yeah, you know, what's Canelo? Yeah, he's wide, but what, he's 5'8", is he? Froch was 6'1", and he had pretty heavy hands, whereas I think Canelo's got more kind of that snapping power, so at the least you could see him marking Golovkin up, worrying him in a way that he hasn't been worried before. The real ace in the hole that I see Froch having is stamina. He really didn't tire. He used to boast all the time about, I wish it was 15 rounds again and I could, you know, really go the distance. But Golovkin sometimes, was it even age-related in as early as 2015, because he was like sort of early to mid-30s, I don't know. But when he was breaking down Martin Murray, I remember him at times kind of sucking wind, and he just looked a little bit fatigued while breaking down, you know, a big and a strong middleweight. He just looked, you know, it looked like he was, he won completely. It was one-sided, but it looked like kind of hard work at the same time. And you wonder whether a guy like Froch would be really sticking it to him, would be throwing harder shots, catching him and forcing him, you know, like daring him to get stuck in as much. You know, how would he cope? We don't know ultimately how he would deal with that kind of situation, that kind of difference with the physical presence and the power if things start getting tough. But I kind of feel ultimately technique has to have the last say here. I think Froch is too open if I'm going to be really trying, you know, pick a winner here, which is hard to pick. But I think Froch was a little bit too upright. I do think Golovkin has slowed down a little bit in recent years. And when you're that open, I think Golovkin would be able to set up his shots better, and he'd be able to land consistently with very clean shots. The overhand right would be key. That's what Froch got floored against Jermaine Taylor. That's what Groves pinged him with. And I think Golovkin coming in, chin down, he'd have to take some big ones that would probably catch him a lot on the cheek and the chin. that coming in with that double jab and then waiting for Froch to commit, because that's what he does, because that's what he always does, and then going with his big shots, I think he'd be able to land a few good ones on the pinpoint of the chin that might just bail him out around round 9 or 10 before things start getting a bit too intense down the home stretch. So it's not something I say with a lot of confidence, but I'm guessing Golovkin, because of how open Froch was, would have been able to do enough damage and win the day. But what do you reckon for that ultimate fight that we sadly never really got?